Turning our eyes back to the tropics this morning, Florida now in the crosshairs for a major hurricane sometime next week. Preparations now underway from Naples to Jacksonville and all points in between. A state of emergency already declared for some parts of the state as Ian grows stronger. Those preparations come as Canadians see heavy rainfall and hurricane force winds, Fiona making landfall there after leaving devastation in its wake across the Caribbean. There's a lot to unpack here this morning, so we are bringing Brittany back in to break it all down for us. So Britt, what do we need to know?
Well, first things, Chloe, is, a lot of people here in the Carolinas, right, have friends, family in Florida. And what I want you to know is the declaring the state of emergency is almost more of a precaution. Ron DeSantis, of course, declaring that so that if necessary, funding can be available if Ian does make a landfall next week in Florida. And of course, really significant, of course, that hurricane there making landfall in the Canada. I think it's just a good reminder, right, that the time of year we're in, hurricane season not over. So I'm going to start with what's going on with Ian. This is the brand new storm, the one that we're going to be talking about over multiple days, as right now the hurricane forecast track from the National Hurricane Center does have that potential landfall somewhere along the west coast of Florida as a Category 3 hurricane early next week. Now, the important thing to note, first things first, is that the center of circulation is not just a line, right? Impacts go very far away from the center. You think about big storms that we've had, like Irma back in 2017, that expanded the whole state of Florida, versus some little tiny hurricanes that oftentimes can only impact areas just even a few miles away, right, from the center of circulation. Now, the reason why there's so I would say higher than normal uncertainty with what's going to happen with Ian is because of two ridges of high pressure. It's going to be how close they are together that really drives where Ian will eventually go. And that's why you can see forecast models have a center of circulation all the way from New Orleans out to sea of the Carolinas. So what the National Hurricane Center at this point has done is essentially they have split the difference, right? Most of this has stayed with their latest forecast track right in the center of where these models are showing. And again, the reason why I see this ridge of high pressure across the center part of our country and the Bermuda High, those breaking apart. Then we have that cold front coming through the center part of the eastern seaboard. And so that's really going to draw exactly where Fiona goes. Will it go around the center of circulation of this high and stay out to sea, or will it take more of a westward track? That's what we have to wait to see what eventually happens. So how could this impact us here in the Carolinas? Well, first things first, if it takes a more westward track, we could see a similar impact to what we had with Fred just last year, where we get flooding potentially across the western half of the Carolinas and even the potential for some isolated tornadoes and higher wind. A coastal track would be zero impacts for us. However, more impacts along the coast, such as rain, wind, and of course those elevated rip currents. And if the storm stays out to sea, that would mean no impact to the Carolinas. At this point, I think there's an equal opportunity that any of these situations could happen. So for us locally, just something that we're keeping an eye on. But of course, the state of Florida and many of those Gulf states are taking a much more aggressive approach at this point. And Chloe, is very warranted, but the strength potential of this storm.